looks like we have plenty enough people to start. I appreciate everybody coming tonight. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Paul Nelson. I'm the co-president of the Woodlands Green and help organize these lectures. This is one that we had set up last year, and then the whole world changed, and we were unable to do it like we thought we would, but I wanted to try to get back and do it as soon as we could. So I appreciate everybody coming. I really can't see everybody. I wanted to acknowledge our board of directors. I think there's several of them here. I won't name them, but I want to thank them for coming and appreciate all the work that they do. And then thanks for all the support from people who are here to enjoy this educational lecture. We do it through May. I'll go ahead and mention now that next month, February the 25th, Dr. Aaron Kinney from HARC will be doing a lecture or a talk on the state of the Bay, Galveston Bay, and the effects that we in the Spring Creek drainage area or watershed have on Galveston Bay, and how we can help make sure that that bay stays as productive as it is. So I want to talk a little bit about, again, just the Woodlands Green. Those of you who have not participated with us or not members, we'd love to have you. We do, I guess, anything that we find to be an aid to the sustainability of this beautiful community, the forest, the trees, the water. I think if you look at it, excuse me, from water quality to solar and wind energy, invasive species, rain barrels, water collection, anything that has to do with keeping this to be the community that it is in our region. There's somebody in this group that's involved in some of that or all of that. And we'd hope that you'll consider going to our webpage, woodlandsgreen.org, and look at what we do and consider joining us and giving us comments that you might want to add things that we're not doing yet. So again, excuse me, we want to thank Easy Foster for coming and his engineers from Leaf Engineering. It'll tell us about, this is the first, and for a while it was the only one. Now I understand they're going to add another solar array at a new school, but it's the first school in the Conroe Independent School District to have reached out and decided to do solar energy to power the school. And that's a big step. And we're proud to have Easy here and his crew to help us understand how it happened and what's next. One of our board members, Carolyn Newman, is with us, and she's going to introduce Easy Foster and his team. She's been very persuasive, I guess, in the realm of solar energy and just residential in the Woodlands, as well as projects like these. And so I wanted her, and it was her idea, and to find Mr. Foster and bring him here. So I want her to go ahead and introduce him. We'll remain muted. We'll also, if you have questions, you want to put it on chat. We'll try to make sure we get those answered at the end. Meanwhile, keep yourselves, it helps the bandwidth to leave ourselves with the video off. And with that, Carolyn, you can go ahead and start the program. Thank you very much for being here.
All right. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. I'd like to, just a little background. We at the Woodlands Green learned about this project about a year ago. So we met with Mr. Foster to learn more. And we had this presentation, as Paul mentioned, we had this scheduled last March. And as we all remember, that pandemic shutdown happened mid-March, just days before this in-person presentation was supposed to happen. So obviously that didn't happen, and we sure do look forward to a return to in-person meetings, hopefully later this year, but we'll see. And probably we can all say that we're pretty good at Zoom by now. So let me introduce our speaker. E.Z. Foster is currently the Director of Planning and Construction for the Conroe Independent School District. He has worked with Conroe ISD in executing school building projects, first as a contractor beginning in 2005, and in his current role as director since 2013. Mr. Foster serves all students, faculty, and staff in planning and constructing safe, efficient, and attractive facilities that meet educational needs, and this is important, they must be fiscally responsible. Mr. Foster received his Bachelor of Science degree in Construction Science from Texas A&M and a Master's of Science in Management from Western Governors University. EZ has an alphabet soup of credentials to his name, and I'll mention just one that is most relevant to an energy-focused discussion. He is a LEED accredited professional with specialty in building and design and construction. And for those of you who don't know what LEED is, it is the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, which is a building certification program used worldwide to recognize and promote energy efficient buildings. So following the successful opening last year of Stockton Junior High's 1 megawatt solar project, the Conroe ISD Board of Trustees has recently approved another junior high in East Montgomery County, and the building of that school will include the Conroe ISD's second photovoltaic project. So hooray for that. Leaf Engineering is the engineer of record for both projects, and I'll let EZ introduce them as needed. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, EZ.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you having us here this evening so we can share with you a little bit about our experiences in this endeavor, because it's something we're excited about. We would rather be in front of you in person because, you know, my dynamic personality is hard to get through the little bitty screens. But I mean, Carolyn did a good job of introducing me. So I've been in construction, you know, my whole career, and I've been involved in several high performance projects or LEED certified projects and things like that. And it's not something we don't pursue LEED here at Conroe, but we do pursue energy efficiency because it is the right thing to do from a fiscal standpoint, from a sustainable construction standpoint. So it's something we're committed to finding good and better ways to build our buildings as we go through. But I'm going to let my team introduce themselves because there's no better way to get to know us than to hear from us directly. So we'll let Mark start with his introduction.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Medorsky. I'm the president of Leaf Engineers. We're a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design firm. MEP is the shortened acronym that we use in the business of architects and engineers. And our design specialties include mechanical, electrical, plumbing, technology. And so on this particular project, we actually designed all the air conditioning systems, all the power distribution and lighting, plumbing, technology, etc. But we also have a specialty in sustainable design. And this particular project has a feature of sustainable design that's pretty large in scale, and that's the 1 megawatt array. So I've been with the firm since 2002. We've got offices all across Texas and California. We've got about 80 engineers firm-wide, and our primary market sector is K-12 facilities. So pleasure to be here tonight.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hood. I'm the Senior Vice President for Leaf Engineers. For this project, I was the project manager for the MEP and technology portion of the project, from design all the way through construction.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Cody Boyd. I work for the parent company, PBK Architects. Have had the pleasure to work with Conroe for the past 5 years. and was the lead architect throughout this design process, and was one of the teammates that helped bring this project to fruition.
So really, we want to share with you guys today a little bit about our idea, kind of what got us to where we are at, why we did it, the design behind it, look at the pricing scenarios, look at some of the optimal sizing and curriculum interface, because that's really, we're a teaching institution. So we want to make sure that we can serve the students well. We want to talk about the results, because the good news about delaying our presentation for almost a year is we have some real in the ground, checks in hand results to share with you. We've also got to talk about how we coordinated with the utility company, because that's a fun experiment. And then commissioning, verification, make sure it works, and then really talk about the global benefit of our program, and then what we're doing for that. So solar in general, I got the ideas. I mean, not the idea for this particular array, but the idea for playing with solar power kind of was born out of my participation as a contractor with PBK and Leaf Engineers on their annual, their participation in the annual AIA sandcastle competition down in Galveston. So right around 2007, 2008, the AIA decided to eliminate gasoline from the beach. So we used to build sandcastles in about a 4 or 5 hour period, and you got to keep the sand wet to hold the sand together. So we would use a gas powered pump, put it out in the surf, pump water up to our sandcastles, and we'd have a really fun day. When they eliminated the gas portion of it, people got creative. You saw all kinds of ways of pumping water from the ocean, from exercise bikes to gravity fed systems. I chose, because at the time I had a corporate credit card that didn't have a budget limit on it, to do the trial and error process to create a solar powered wagon, which you're seeing a picture of one in my garage on the screen now, to help us power our pumps. So we had water hoses, we could run water all day, and we got to the point after several years and several iterations where we were actually generating power on the beach, not consuming power on the beach. So it was a real fun process, and it applies directly to what we do every day in our daily lives. So we're really talking about the design here and really kind of get into what we did. So I was, deep into my own credential maintenance. I was studying some solar programs through some lead education websites. And I just finished an internal exam on a solar project in Alaska to prove that I sat through the seminar and learned for an hour. And then Mark called me that afternoon and said, "Hey, I got a crazy idea. What if we could incorporate solar on one of your projects?" And I thought, that's like divine intervention. It couldn't have happened at a better time in my own mindset. And we were in a planning cycle. So it worked really well for us. So I said, "Mark, I'll ask for permission." And then I got some conversations going internally. And then we had a meeting with the board, and they didn't say no, and said, "Mark, we got a green light. Let's move forward." And we had the benefit. Yeah, we had the benefit of a job site with some flexibility. So, Mark?
Just to reiterate what Easy was saying, that it always begins with kind of a dream. And, I've known Easy since he was a builder at one of the major construction companies in town, Duratec, very reputable. We built a lot of things together before we got connected in Conroe. And I knew he was the type of person that would at least consider it. And I had no idea how excited he was going to be about it. We knew there was going to be a movement in this society, a sea change towards sustainable design. And it takes an owner with a little bit of a spirit of a maverick to say, "You know what, let's give it a shot." And honestly, it started out as just a little bit of a back of a napkin discussion at a great little restaurant there, just near the district. And from there, we started putting together what you see now. It's kind of our initial thoughts about, okay, what kind of space do we think we might need for something like this? We did a little bit of a tour of industry, just doing our own private research independently. And what we learned from solar integrators and folks who had done this before a time or two was there's three basic ways to make it happen. You put these panels on the ground, or you put them on the roof of the building, or you put them on some type of canopy structure. And so after discussions with Easy, it was pretty clear putting it on the roof was just not something that Easy was interested in. And I totally supported him in that. We get an awful lot of rain along the Gulf Coast. So the thought of putting that many penetrations through the roof, the first time we did this was a little daunting. So we stepped back from that idea a little bit and said, you know what, if we want to give this thing the best chance of making financially, coupled with the fact that, as Easy will point out, we had a very generously sized site that we were able to look at a spot for putting these panels on the ground. And as Easy mentioned, the passage of time actually worked in our favor, because in the time that we first started talking about this till we got ready to buy these panels, the footprint actually shrank because these panels continue to improve in efficiency, and the wattage that they're able to produce continues to climb even to today. So the next time we build this, we'll be able to do it with fewer panels and a smaller footprint and still maintain this kind of power output.
And pick up from that before we dig into the design. I mean, Cody is the design architect for the building. So one of our normal constraints is budget for any project, and it was a budget problem on this one as well. We had approved it in the 2015 bond referendum to build a junior high school before we had the idea that we were going to do a solar integration on the job site. So Cody really worked with us to help us design a building and beat our budget targets for the architectural side of the program, and leave us some budget variability so we could entertain the solar integration and the photovoltaic systems.
All right, with that, we've got another design step here, and we just wanted to share just briefly some of a little bit of the science behind it. I work for a lot of architects, and a few years ago when I brought this concept to a management team and said that, Easy Foster and Conroe ISD have approved us to go into design, the first question was, well, is it going to work? And so to convince them, we said, well, don't take our word for it. There are people that have been studying the power of the sun for a really long time, and NREL, the National Renewable Energy Labs, actually makes a program where you can model how much solar energy will fall on any square foot of the planet. And so once you take your site and you plug it in, you're able to see very closely how much solar power can be harvested. And so you see just a little heat map of the nation. Texas has plenty of areas that are very, very well suited, and along the Gulf Coast is no exception. And so as we researched what we might want to do, we said, okay, let's make this solar array something that we think will be affordable. We're going to take it as an alternate, as a cost control measure, but let's do everything we can to put it in a position so that we can fund it. So what were the options that we had? One of them was to connect it to the grid. And so we met with Entergy, the utility company there in Montgomery County, and they were all on board. They have never been a part of a project this size in Texas for a K-12 school district. They have some installations along the Louisiana coast of their distribution zone, but this was the first time an independent school district approached them with this type of arrangement. So they had to kind of check with legal and so forth. We had a lot of meetings. We got them to commit to a net metering agreement. And so again, the rule of thumb at the time from the integrators was you would never build the array bigger than about 2/3 of your projected total load. So that's where we started. We said, you know what, we'll just put it together based on the best information we have available. We'll put it in the documents as a design build. And if, God willing, the alternate price is acceptable, we can proceed. And so at the same time, there was a real movement in this country towards the school as a teaching tool, and the creation of sustainable students is something that PBK and LEAF have a vested interest in. So we also were able to discuss how we could turn this solar power plant into something that would be usable for more than just power for instruction. So that was another goal we had, a goal in the project planning stage, is make sure we could use this. And it was actually Dr. Stockton, who's since retired, who came by during one of our planning sessions. We were going to put the whole thing kind of in the back. We were trying to hide it. And he said, you know what? I want the community to see it. Don't hide it. Put it where we can get to it, or we can walk around it, where the students can, get an up close and personal look at what's going on. So fast forward about 27 to 36 months later from that initial lunch that Easy and I had, and you're looking at a live aerial of the site. The array is actually split, so the darkened areas at the bottom and the top are both portions of the array. It's a ground mounted $1.7 million 1 megawatt output array that is grid connected and net metered. Everything that we had asked, and that we had set as project goals in the beginning, came to fruition because the price was where we needed it to be. So we were very fortunate all the way around. The contracting community, the school board, the design community, everyone pulled together on this one, including the utility company, to make this happen. So as far as the solar panels go, we just thought we'd give you a little bit of the stats for those who are interested. The panels are actually on a series of channels that raises them off the ground a few feet. They're not sitting completely at grade. They're elevated just slightly, so you can get under them, get around them, get to them. The whole system is warranted for 25 years. If you need the numbers, there's over 3,000 panels, and each one of them is about 360 watts. So you multiply that, you need that many to get 1 megawatt output. We actually have some losses to account for. So we've got 1.18 megawatts of input to yield the 1 megawatt output. And so with our multi-year service contract on it as well, the district has several years to figure out how to take care of it. But what we're finding out now is you wash it once a year, and you may occasionally have to retorque some DC connections. So the panels are fairly maintenance free. And then also what's going on is adjacent to the rows of panels, there's something called an inverter. So what naturally happens with a solar panel is it's producing DC power, direct current. And of course, the world runs on AC power, alternating current. So we need a converter. And we initially designed this after some visits that we took. Several of us went down to the VA hospital in Houston. There's a very large installation there, and they use centralized inverters. And these were large panel mounted inverters, like a piece of switchgear outdoors. And after we started getting into design a little bit and pricing this and talking with solar integrators, we did migrate to a distributed solution here. So you have a series of 60-watt DC to AC inverters. And the beauty of these is they're like Legos. If one's out, it's just not a problem. You're just losing 60 kW on over a megawatt. So it's much more maintainable, it's expandable. And if something fails, if something goes wrong with an inverter, it's very simple for an electrician to just change out one inverter should it need service.
So one of the things that we did, so after, Mark had talked about the size of the array that we were trying to get based on our square footage that we had on the site, we knew it was going to be a ground mounted array just from, available budgets. We have some simulation programs that we ran based on the size of the array, and it was calculated at a little over 1.4 megawatts per year that we would gain for accumulated power from the solar array. As Easy had mentioned, the delay in our presentation has actually given us a little bit of time to see how the array has performed. And in the bottom right, you can see that from last January of 2020 to this January, the array actually collected a little over 1.6 megawatts worth of power over the last year. So it's actually 15% better than what we had originally calculated. So certainly we're we're excited to see our homework actually coming true. So one of the things that we talked about earlier was just making sure to have this solar array and the collection rates and the system be part of the curriculum at the campus. And so this is our solar dashboard screen that we've worked with the integrator to be able to place these displays in 3 different places throughout a lot of the common areas throughout the campus at Stockton Junior High, where it tells the students the performance of the array, and it's all real time, gives them kind of a 3-day snapshot of how the array is performed. And you see each of these large humps are the collection rate of the solar array for that given day. And so what's interesting is you can see at the top of each of the humps, there's a flat spot. And in trying to figure out, okay, why is that there? Well, that's the size of our array. So anywhere from 0 to 1 megawatt is the grid scale here. And so you can see for 4 to 5 hours a day, our array is actually at its maximum collection point, which again, it's great to talk about, but it's awesome to actually see it in action and actually perform the way that you thought it would. This screen also kind of gives them a snapshot of what our current collection rate is for amount of the power from the array. It tells them kind of here's the globe and the sun angle. And so it's interesting to watch how does that sun angle change on the horizon throughout the year between the winter and summer months. So it's kind of a powerful screen that just kind of gives them a rough snapshot of how is your building or how is the system performing on a sunny day? How does it perform on a rainy day like today? And so this is a powerful tool that we certainly work with the district on when they make it as part of their curriculum. If you dig in a little bit deeper, you can see the actual performance of just a typical day. So here's last Thursday. It was a sunny day. You can see we started collecting solar power a little bit after 7 a.m. Ramps up fairly quickly over the next couple of hours. For 3 to 4 hours that day, we were at the maximum collection rate of the system. And then as the sun starts setting on the horizon, it'll drop off, and roughly at nearing 6 p.m., the array goes to sleep for the night, and the building is using then utility power until the next morning. And so we use this program just to make sure that how is the system performing, or all of the parts and pieces and the panels and the inverters, is everybody working and the system is working correctly as designed. But really, I love this slide because it talks a little bit, it shows, what's happening at this building in the off-peak hours, as well as what's happening during the day. So you can see the light blue area that you have on the bottom of your screen. That's when the building is using actual power, utility power from Entergy. So that's going to be from sunset to the next morning of sunrise. And then once the sun starts coming up, you can see that it ramps up pretty quick. The large light blue cone shape that you see is the amount of power that we've collected with the array. And then the red areas that you see are the overage of power that we actually had the opportunity to be able to sell back to Entergy. And so, on days like today, when you look at the array, because it wasn't a bright sunny day, we used a little more utility power than we would on a day example like we show here. But it's just a very powerful tool to see, how is the array performing, what expected credits, should we receive, but also it shows you what's happening to the building after hours. So the district has software in place and programs for their AC systems and their lighting systems to be able to control those systems, turn them off at night, setbacks for AC. And so, we work with the district to minimize as much utility power usage in the off hours because you can see it's a powerful tool. I mean, anything that we can do to save any energy helps us in the long run overall for this solar array. Here's the same, just a different way to show that same 3-day period. It's a little easier to understand. Again, you have the cyan, the light blue colors in the bottom, which are when the building uses utility power. You have our solar collection, which are these large blue humps here. And then the red is the amount of power, everything below the horizontal line that the district was able to sell power back to Entergy. And again, these are all real-time collection rates. So at any given time, the district can go and review this information. to see how the system is performing. And again, these aren't exciting graphs to a lot of people, but I'm the geeky numbers guy, so I love looking at this stuff. And so one of the things that we do with these numbers is really just a chance to match up with what does Entergy see on their collection rates, for their meter. And so we want to make sure that at the end of the month, when we all try to settle up any debits and credits, is our data that we have matching up with their information. And so what you can see here is with our system in the morning at the lower left-hand corner, we originally start, we're using utility power, but once our solar array starts up at around 7 a.m., you can see in this bottom left-hand corner, that meter for the utility, it's 100% zero, line, horizontal line. So there's nothing happening with the utility meter during that solar collection time during the day. So we verify with Entergy, they're not charging us anything. They're registering that their meter is actually stagnant, and we're in a collection mode at that point to be able to sell them excess energy. Then once the sun goes down, we're using utility power. Again, the next day, meter stops, and it continues on each day with that setup. So it's been exciting to see that our information that we've collected actually matches up with their information. So it's just a powerful tool to be able to really dig into the numbers and see how the system is performing.
Well, this is a utility bill, and Easy was kind enough to let us publish it. He said, hey, you could get it on the Freedom of Information Act anyway, if you wanted to. But what this bill is showing us is everything that's going on, and it's a fairly standard form. All the utility companies in Texas they're regulated by the PUC. But to the average user who comes up to this bill, this thing is like the shell game. It's very difficult to see exactly where the money's going. So I've highlighted just a few key lines. One is the demand charge, one of the other is the energy charge, and of course the bottom line is the total bill. So there's a lot that goes on that you have absolutely no control over. That no matter what you did, you were going to be charged. Some of these other tariffs, those are just part and parcel of the utility companies' operating costs that we all have to underwrite. But the big parts of that bill, of course, are the demand and the energy charge. And that's where we saw our biggest initial impact. And the metric we were looking at measuring ourselves against was the sister school. We had the advantage of there are a few schools this exact size in the district, if not larger, same program, same enrollment, same square footage. And what we were able to see, and this is truly the money slide, we took the demand KW, and Stockton is there in the middle, and we cut it in half and then some. So the largest part of your utility bill is actually that demand KW. So anything you can do to lower that peak demand, that has the largest single impact on your out-of-pocket expense. So this array has done a stellar job dropping that demand KW, and that's the biggest improvement overall on the bottom line of M&O costs. And then the other half of this equation is, of course, the consumption. And so we had 3 months last year where we have all the data because we finally loaded this school up in August, and we've got August, September, October. There's a little lag getting information. When it does come, it's maybe 60, 75 days after the month closes. So we'll keep updating this as we move through the school year. Well, we just wanted to take a snapshot of the first full occupied quarter, and the results really kind of floored us because we were hoping on paper, we really didn't talk about it except quietly behind the scenes that, hey, this thing is should defer 2/3 of the cost of the utilities for this buildings because it's sized for 2/3 of the peak. This array is 1 megawatt, and when you calculate the megawatt hours annually, we're 2/3 of that number. And so here's what we found: we're actually saving 63% over this baseline case. And so that's when folks ask me, is it working? We have the science that says, yes, it's producing the kilowatt hours, but more importantly, now we have the economic engine to justify it as well. So it's an absolute grand slam at this point when we see we save 2/3 on our energy costs so far. And we're being conservative with these numbers. We actually are getting some information that our buyback is stronger in the months ahead than we've been experiencing. So that was the really the aha moment where we said, you know what, this works. We're excited. It's sustainable design with a really favorable economic performance. Brian, I didn't know if you were going to jump back on, but I will just mention that this monthly bill, and when I said it was kind of the shell game, I don't know how many mathematicians we have on our Zoom call tonight, but that's what you have to be to understand how much money that the utility company is, obligated to pay you if you are generating and putting power back out on the grid. It's tied to the meso rate. It's a function of how much demand is on the grid, and it tells you the hour-to-hour retail purchase price that you're going to get for any power that you can give back to the utility company. But we have to take it on faith to a certain point, but we at least have our own instrumentation. We have our own data. We have the contract that's signed, but more importantly, the district is getting the checks, and that's what counts. Is the system works. Entergy has been a great partner in this venture, and we've learned just a ton on how to make this work, not only physically, but also economically.
And so just to back up what Mark had talked about, so MISO, which is the Mid-Continental Independent System Operator, they're the operator of the grid for the central United States. So you can see there the areas that they serve go up into central Canada. They come down, and this is part of Entergy's footprint, where they have this little jog over that comes in and incorporates part of East Texas, which happens to be part of the district. And so you can see this size of this array, or the size of this service grid. So what happens is, using this awesome formula that nobody in their world would ever be able to figure out how it actually works, what happens is the power is actually a tradable commodity. So in a deregulated area, which is what energy is, they actually get their buyback numbers and the cost of power through the MISO utility grid commodity exchange. So every 15 minutes, power is traded. And so you can kind of get an idea of, here's an example: at 10 p.m. on a given day, a kilowatt hour was $25.87. And then that's at nighttime, of course, when power is not in high demand. But you can see just a few hours later at 3 p.m., the cost of a kilowatt hour is almost double for how it trades. And so when you start to talk to Entergy and figure out, hey, how big is my check going to be, that you're going to give me because I'm selling you all of this power? Well, all of that is backed up on what is that tradable rate for that hour of a kW for a kilowatt hour? What does that cost? And so you can get in and try to track it. And so originally during the design, we did set up this 10,000 line spreadsheet that just looked at what does power cost every 15 minutes throughout the day, to figure out what were the expectations of this array going to be as far as what our buyback would be. And so again, it's just information that we can use with Entergy to make sure that our bills match up. Here's an example of at the end of the month, Entergy will send the district a statement that shows, for example, on this particular day, when they were in credit mode and when they were in utility mode. And so you can see between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., we were in a buyback mode where we were able to sell power back to Entergy. Here's how much power we did sell them over that given hour period. Here's the rate at which they paid the district for that power. And then here's how much money the district made over that given hour. So the dollar figures at certain times are not that much when you look at it, but over a given day or a month or even a year, those totals add up. And so where we looked at earlier, where power may be almost $50 a kWh over a given period of time. When you get into the summer months and you may have California that's needing to purchase power from other nearby grids, you can see during the months of July and August, a kWh sometimes will trade for as much as $150 a kWh, depending on the time of day and you know when demand is in a high need. And then again, here's just a monthly statement. So Entergy will take each of those daily reports, put them into a monthly statement for the district, where they can then figure out what their collected rate's going to be. Entergy will settle with you at the end of the year. So the district doesn't get a check each month. They actually get a check at the end of the year when all of this is calculated.
That's all really, really great information, and glad we have really good engineers to figure all that out, because I think I would struggle there. To help integrate all that, kind of what Easy and Mark had mentioned before, you know, part of our goal is to run parallel with this energy savings for the district. It was an idea to also integrate this as an opportunity for the CISD students. So we wanted the faculty and all of its users and teachers to have a mechanism to teach and learn from, which is this building that they live in every day. With this implementation, we had to create we had the ability to create a tangible environment. And so bringing that technology to their backyard and applying the data and analytics via the screens and monitors throughout the campus that Brian talked about earlier, we were really able to do that. And this integration really creates what we think is really good awareness for not just the students, but also the teachers and staff members, parents, and the community as a whole. And you know, as leaders of our communities and design professionals, we want to create opportunities to introduce these sustainable practices into our young students' lives. It's important to us that they understand these concepts from a young age, and that they understand energy and conservation. We believe, you know, if they can understand these while they're young, it's just going to grow their future and create opportunities for them. And as they understand these ideas, you know, they'll be able to grow and learn, and then introduce these same ideas into better development technology and practices for future buildings and communities. So part of that is really, as you've seen, you know, just asking a series of questions, and it's relatively simple. You know, asking these younger students that are just grasping the concept of what is energy. You know, they understand if I flip a light switch on, light comes off, and I turn it off, I turn it off. But to take them to the next level sooner, so that way they can grow, is important. And so, you know, why is conserving energy important, and how do we do that? There's a lot of programs out there across the country and the state that support education for younger generations about these ideas and processes, by providing live data in the school place where the student and the teacher can walk up and touch a screen and interact with it. We think that's a really important process that really supports the creativity and the science together. And so part of kind of what I think Easy had mentioned earlier, or maybe it was Mark, where Dr. Stockton said, hey, you know, I want this out front and I want people able to see it. You know, that's such a great move, because if people see it and they get in touch with it and they understand it, it becomes a better mechanism to educate everybody. And we really think that's really going to create long-term solutions and rewards. So by being able to provide this, you know, we expect that our younger generations are going to grow up in these buildings where we have started putting this sustainable design in their backyard. And with that, they're going to grow, create innovation, build better technology. And as we get to design more of these facilities with districts like Conroe, we're going to find ways to integrate these these methods better. So there's methods, and I think Easy's going to talk about here in a minute, but methods of, now we have our panels on the ground. Are there other ways to go about it? There are some disadvantages and advantages of how we do that. Do we put it on the roof or not? And so we want this to become so seamless in our design that it's just what we live with every day. And I think we're really on track to do that.
All right. So, and as we wrap up our presentation today, I'll talk a little bit about what we're planning for the future. So we have authorized it. The board approved the next junior high school in the 2019 bond referendum at our December board meeting, and that that project includes our second solar array integrated into one of our campuses. So the campus is in East County. It is sandwiched between Caney Creek High School and Milam Elementary School off of 2090 at Grangerland Road. And that campus has a very unique opportunity because we are expanding our East County Transportation Center as well. So we're going to take a better approach at efficiency on the land area use and cover our buses with it. So we're going to use our bus parking area as a solar generator. So we're getting, a bank, two services for the dollar that we're spending. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible. So it's going to pay us back just like Stockton is. It's in the Entergy area as well. And it's going to protect our buses and protect those assets for even longer as well. So as we're looking forward into the future, we're trying to figure out how to preserve more land area because land is not cheap. I think we've all experienced that here recently. And so covering buses with it's neat. We can cover, as we look into the future, cover parking lots. We can cover lots of things for it and provide a lot more benefit to our constituents, which are students and staff. And so we're moving forward in the future, and Mark's going to kind of bring this home.
Thanks, Easy. Yeah, we have a couple of slides here, and then we'll be done with our formal portion of the presentation and open it up, try to get to your questions. But some of the things that we learned was that we really can collect the solar from many different places, and we can connect all these arrays and parallel them. And the same concept holds true for distributing the inverters. So now that these are kind of like Lego sets, we've got a little better grasp on the flexibility. So we'll be able to do a lot more different shapes that benefit the natural, program and architecture of the space or whatever the function is of the site. We realize now it's very flexible to lay out the panels. We weren't quite sure how to do that when we first started. The other piece of the pie that was interesting was this solar integrator coordination. There was a lot of back and forth in talking with the utility company. We can't encourage that enough. We had many, many, many meetings, and as you might imagine, they're not subject to our meeting minutes, or we're not the boss of them. And so we had to state and restate and say again and meet and so forth. And I think it bears mentioning that we had Entergy as a power seller as well. That was actually something that we've learned. You can do this in any feeder zone to any of the utility companies. It's not a problem, but if you can find a utility company that is also your utility provider, it's just a one-stop shop, a place to sell the power. As opposed to in some of the other feeder zones, you got to bring your own power purchaser to the table. So we do have some other clients that aren't in the Entergy zone, and we're making the arrays a little smaller because it's just a little more complicated to put the deal together. And then lastly was all this data that Brian was showing you that we have access to. We're really going to be able to analyze how this building is operating. We've already put together a little subcommittee to take a look at other ways to trim not just the demand, but also the consumption after hours. So it's just the beginning of what we'll be able to do in terms of helping the district operate at as a low a point that we can get them to. And the capital's already been invested. This is just kind of fine tuning the engine of this thing to run as smoothly as possible. You
And
know, go ahead, Ethan. Say what you want to say here.
yeah, well, I mean, starting with the AIA, and the 2030 challenge. It's an initiative to bring more efficient, energy efficient buildings to the marketplace. I mean, so it's something that we're not mandated to do, but it's something that we work with our architects with like I started the presentation with. We have all these things in mind as we're going through, so we're trying to be more efficient with each energy in each building we build, because we do consume a lot of energy. I mean, we pay annually as a district somewhere around $16 million a year in utility bills. So if we can build a building and keep that, minimized, we can be a lot more sustainable as a district. But we're also looking at, reducing steel, reducing wood, trying to be more efficient, more sustainable in our buildings.
And what we'll add to that is, as a design professional firm, both PBK and Leaf are part of a broader group of architects and engineers. And there is a new triple bottom line benefit analysis that's being introduced to the marketplace. And we're not the writers of this program, but what's going on is we know that on-site renewable has more than just an economic benefit. It reduces the impact on the grid. It reduces the amount of gas that the utility company consumes off in the distance, which reduces the amount of sulfur dioxide and other harmful pollutants that get emitted. There's just so many benefits to reducing that air pollution. And of course, everyone's heard of carbon and the carbon footprint and the importance in lowering our carbons if we're serious about improving or minimizing any environmental impact that development might have. And so those first two numbers on the triple bottom line analysis, they're kind of new to the equation. The bottom line at $3.7 million, that's what the Conroe Independent School District will net after 25 years of operating this array. And in the school business, the name of the game is lower your M&O costs. So that's just a really telling number to see that stat. But if you look at the full triple bottom line impact, that $1.7 million investment really paid back manifold. And we're just really excited. We're thankful to Conroe Independent School District and Easy Foster for kind of helping lead the team through this. It's proven to be such an eye-opening experience, and we just couldn't be prouder of the accomplishment, and looking forward to the next challenge.
Indeed. So at this time, I mean, there's lots of questions in the chat, and I don't know how y'all want to moderate the questions.
This is Paul. Thank you so much for the presentation. I said, and your consultants, very concise and well done. Before, we do have several questions, and I don't know if Carol wants to do that or Carolyn wants to go through the questions. I can do it, but I wanted to, there were two things that struck me majorly, and that was during your talk. The number one, as you mentioned at the very end there, we know that school districts are always facing the scrutiny of the public, and that's rightfully so. But I think that I was impressed with how much time you spent thinking about it, talking about it, researching it, and making sure that what you took to the board was what you thought would work. So I thought that was extremely helpful, because once people see that it does work, I was just impressed with the amount of time that went into getting to that point. The other thing was, having been in the water business a long time, I think it's one of the things we used to preach, and that was that the cheapest water one can have is that which one doesn't use. And you pointed out that you're also looking not only at this generation of energy, but to minimize the energy used inside the school. So it's not just making energy to meet the demand, but decreasing the demand as well. So I think those two things were very poignant, and I appreciate you bringing those up. Carolyn, you on? Maybe not.
Yes, go ahead. I'll let
You
you
want,
answer questions.
you want me to go ahead and do the question?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I started answering some as they were coming in during the speech.
Oh,
Yeah.
good job, Cody.
Well, I'm just going to read these about, as I have them here, about number one was, speaking of buses, is Conroe investigating electric buses that obviously would be powered through some of this energy that you're producing.
Well, and I can only speak from the outside. I mean, we have a whole transportation department that really looks at what's going on. But I can tell you one of the problems with electric vehicles is range. And that's something we will always deal with here in Conroe ISD. One of our, if you look at the whole district's M&O expense sheet, one of the big expenses we have that we outpace the state on is transportation. And that's primarily due to our size. I mean, we cover 348 square miles, and our buses drive about 45,000 miles every day. So when you look at it from that standpoint, electric vehicles aren't quite at the range that we need them to be effective. But I can assure you, as the technologies improve, I mean, our department is building, but the transportation department is also looking at the most cost effective and the most efficient ways to transport our kids. So they're constantly looking at ways to save money. I can assure you that.
I think I know the answer to the next question, but it says, I teach in Houston ISD. Is Leaf Engineers open to working with other districts? Maybe Leaf could answer that.
Yes, we have operators standing by.
I thought I knew the answer to that. The next question, cleaning panels annually, what products are used, and do you have a contractual or contract to come in or hands-on maintenance?
So we did, and Leaf specified for us a 5-year maintenance agreement in the overall purchase, which all the numbers we showed you today include what would be the cost of that 5-year agreement. And we did that so we could also train our own staff. So long term, we're going to take that task on in-house with our own maintenance personnel. But since it's a new system and new technologies, we really wanted to have some expert guidance through that, so we aren't just figuring it out trial and error. But the fun part is we're learning is the washing of the panels is just water. I mean, so somebody just needs to go out there with water and a brush to basically just wash the dust off the panels. I mean, it's not complex, and since they're on the ground, it's really not a difficult task at all. And then every once in a while, or twice annually, they'll open the inverter boxes and check the lugs and torques and all the other connections. But it's really I try to explain to people, it's not it sounds complex, but it's really not. There's 2 wires in, 2 wires out. I mean, until you get to the inverters, and that's where it turns into high voltage and a little more experience necessary. But it's really a system that's not difficult to maintain.
The next question, what is the payback time for the cost of the program versus electrical savings and electrical payback? And I guess obviously, when do you pay off the system?
That's a great question. And there's a lot of information that was presented. Right now, what we're looking at, and we ran the numbers before we started design, we were somewhere between 11 and 13 years is the payback. The life of the system is 25 to 30 years. Right now, we're on pace for an 11-year payback, but we're early in the game, and we actually hope to improve that. We're seeing some larger buyback numbers, but in year 1, it's projecting out as it was originally conceived right at 11-year payback, which if you've ever been around solar design for years, the knock was, hey, wait a minute, it takes 30, 40, 50 years to pay back, and the panels only last 30 years. What's going on here? So we have proof that it's a reasonable payback for an institution to consider. That's for sure.
Well, it's one we were discussing earlier this afternoon. All of our calculations are very conservative in nature because we want to deliver on every promise we make. So we try to be conservative. We use a straight line calculation method to get to the 11-year payback that Mark talked about. When you really look forward and look at the cost of energy rising year over year, I mean, we anticipate, 10 years from now, the cost of energy being higher. That means the cost of our sell back to the grid will be higher. I mean, so it just makes the equation better over time. But using the most conservative method, we felt like we had a reasonable payback, and our board supported it. So we'll pay the system off early is our goal, and it's proving out to be that every day.
Similar question to the previous one about LEAF and PBK doing work with HISD. Have you been doing that? And one farther down says, would you? So let's answer the first.
Yeah, we're in the school business, so please, whoever's asking that question, you can go to our website, PBK's website, LEAF's website. Please reach out to us. There's a place to send a message. We are on the list of approved architects and engineers for the district, but the actual divvying up of projects, that's a whole nother group that's in charge of doing that. So we certainly have the skill set and be happy to talk with you further about it.
So, I mean, at this point, are you doing anything with HISD or?
LEAF and PBK are, yes, we're writing district standards. We have some projects. We've built several facilities for them. We're doing the new Bel Air High School rebuild right now. And so we've got their marquee project. We're very, very much close to the district. There's been a little administrative changes as of late, but we're always, we're in their district actually physically. So it's something that we would be happy to speak with further at the appropriate time.
That's just a few more questions. Have you tried to integrate the solar arrays into math, science, and shop classes? You kind of touched on that, but you might expand on.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting issue. But I know we've our elementary and intermediate schools, which are right next door, have very much enjoyed having it in their backyard. I've gotten to participate in several classes with those students, explaining what we did, why we did, how we did, and I anticipate getting to do that each year as classes move through. At the junior high level, I mean, they're teaching earth science and life sciences there. I mean, so our hope was they would integrate it into their program. And we've got a high energy principal at that campus who is also an enthusiastic educator. So he's working. His first year in that campus has not been the best year to try to incorporate new technologies into his curriculum with COVID and things like that. But the good news is they're studying it, they're looking at it, and they're trying to figure out how to integrate it into their programs more fluidly. And I know when we get to return to life like we would like it to call normal, I know it'll be a big part of our program, especially as we start developing in other locations.
We have quite a few questions remaining. If you don't mind, excuse me, easy, we can continue that if people need to leave. I understand that, but I do appreciate your attendance.
I am happy to hang on. So
all right. This was a good one. I'm a great presentation. I'm an urban and regional planning student at Texas A&M University. Was wondering if there were any complications with zoning or the comprehensive plan or incentives in utilizing the solar panels. Additionally, are there any considerations to retroactively incorporate solar arrays at pre-existing campuses?
It's a very, very detailed question. I know Cody.
Yeah, that's a student, right?
Yeah, but Cody's going to get a chuckle because one of the things I was hoping for at this particular array is in the city of Conroe, and they had when we started this project, we had a pretty intense tree preservation ordinance. So we tried to lobby with the city about this is a sustainable building practice, but we have to sacrifice trees to do it. And it was a lively and energetic conversation, let's just say. But it is that's the only real difficulty we've run into from a zoning or a jurisdictional approval process, because most people would look at it and understand it is the right thing to do. It is going to help the area overall. So it was hard for anybody to argue why we should not do it, if that makes sense. And then when we look for retroactively. Part of the reason we looked at ground mounting our first set of panels, and then our second set of panels is going over bus canopies. If we were to expand, we need a pretty good sized building to expand to. So our high school campuses are candidates, our junior high campuses are candidates where we have large parking areas where we could not expand into open land, but we would cover already developed land as a brownfield method essentially. I mean, so it's something that we hope to be able to expand to. It's a budgeting issue. I mean, it'll always be a conversation when we're bond planning. But, you know, as you mentioned before, transparency is key, and trying to get everything in that we need in a bond plan is sometimes difficult when we're dealing with different political views, so to speak, on how to get funding for what we're doing.
Well, the only comment I'll add to Easy's answer is just from a straight pure design standpoint, from an architectural and engineering and construction standpoint, we can absolutely retrofit solar to any facility. It's just a function of where would you like to put it and how much would you like to do, what makes sense financially. But the technology is easily retrofittable, just to complete the answer to that detailed
Yeah.
question.
I'll tack onto that too. And as this technology is becoming more and more prevalent, more and more jurisdictions are more accepting. I'm sure at one point in time you would go into neighborhoods that would not allow you to have solar panels on your house, and now we're seeing that as a welcome thing now. And so we're seeing these cities create flexibility and actually helping us get these systems integrated and not just being a foreign object to them that they don't want to accept. It's really coming around, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah, thanks. And I would stress, without delving into politics too much, a lot of times the regulators, the code enforcers, and others are the ones that need to be convinced, like you just said, that you need to bring them examples of how it's worked. In the Texas A&M student, that's another thing to stress, is that one of the biggest issues is convincing those entities that this is a good thing and that they need to work with the people who want to try it. And it is getting easier and easier, but that's one of the drawbacks, is if you're used to doing something the same way for 40 years, it's hard to get all of that. And so that's a bit important process, is to work with the regulators and the utilities, the districts and the cities. I think, I have as a residential solar user for the last 1.5 years, just trying to gather some ideas on best practices to keep clean performing at high capacity. And I'm assuming this is one that's on the roof. So any ideas, except don't let your husband go up there?
I mean, get a long pole for your brush, you know. But I mean, that's it, is really just keeping them clean. I mean, so here in the woodlands in Conroe, we have a lot of trees, we have a lot of pine and oak, we have a lot of sap, we have a lot of things that make the lenses cloudy. I mean, so really it is just keeping them clean is the hardest part of the task. I mean, everything else is pretty standard form for an electrician to be able to maintain and operate. So it's
And
cleanly.
the other comment I'll add to Easy's is, in a residential area, you really need to be aware of shade trees. And so over time, as your neighbor's trees grow, and anything that casts a shadow on your array is taking away from its output. So
Yeah.
over time, you have to keep foliage and trees trimmed back and clear the shadows clear from the array.
And I think, as you mentioned earlier, that as far as cleaning them, it seems that water works just fine. And I'm assuming that's for any solar panel, whether it's on a roof or in the array that you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of elbow grease and water is really all they recommend.
Right. How did you make the decision on which PV system provider to purchase from? Were they from the Conroe, Houston area? And do you offer guided tours to the public? Someday.
Yeah, well, I know we have a transparency is a big deal. I mean, so when we're selecting providers, we get quotes from multiple people. We interview, we talk to them. We get references, we make, and we do a public advertisement. So we tried to reach out far and wide, and we actually had some nationwide interest in our programs, not just from Texas. This system is new to us, but out on the West Coast, it's commonplace. I mean, so there was a lot of folks interested in it, but ultimately we looked at bids, looked at total installed price, and we looked at qualifications and references, and we chose what was the best value for the district, which I believe, if I remember correctly, was the least expensive of the quotes that we received. And it turned out to be a great partnership. The integrator is easy to work with and very, I think they're out of Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. And they were a good partner in our system.
And as you say, as being a public entity, the school district has to be very, very clear and in their bidding process. I just got two more questions. Any problems with critters, squirrels, rats? I think that's a political statement, but chewing through panel wires, hail, wind damage to the panels, experienced both in the first years of residential solar with a forested community, had critter problems, as well as, I'm assuming, the damage from the hail.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had those yet?
Well, I'll let Mark and Brian talk about how they protect our systems from the common irritators that we deal with all throughout the industry.
Irritators, I like that.
So this is time for Mark. Oh, there you go.
I was waiting for Brian to jump in there when you said critters. How do we protect it? Here's the thing. It's at this point, it hasn't been a problem. It's fenced. There's a bed of rocks under it to control foliage. It's away from large, forest. So at this point, we just have not had any issues. We've been through a full year and the best that Houston's had to throw at it weather-wise, and it's taken a licking and keeps on ticking. So to date, I can't see that we've lost any panels to any natural phenomenon or man-made at this point.
Yeah, just to back up what Mark said, for any solar array that you put on the ground, they recommend that you do fence it. We don't want, raccoons and squirrels and everybody getting into it, but also, if the cattle that's next door in the pasture gets out, you certainly don't want it getting into your array. It is safe, but there are parts of it that certainly are dangerous when you get into the high voltage side of it, but definitely any ground mounted system should be fenced in.
And then everything's protected in conduit and runs into those inverters that are in a nice, secure, weatherproof box. And kind of much like what I believe Mark mentioned earlier, they go out there twice a year to open those boxes up and check them out and make sure that they're being maintained accordingly. And so, and even I think part of the question was about hail. I think the panel technology, from what we're seeing, is continuing to get better and better. They're more impact resistant. There are different panels. There's different kinds that are more film based. There's others that have more of a glass type lens to them. And so in some applications, probably more residential ones, you would see ones that may be a little bit more fragile. But for these large array commercial style, we're using pretty robust panels that can take a bit of a hit. And of course they're warranted. So, if we did get a big basketball size hail come down and crash one, we get out there and get it replaced, and it's not too big of a deal.
Right. I think that's it. The last comment was about whether the woodlands zoning versus covenants, et cetera. The zoning, you're right, the woodlands does not have that capacity at this time, but they do have the covenants. But as Carolyn and other board members and other people probably on this call, there have been a lot of people putting in solar on their roof, and the woodlands has been quite okay with that. So
right. And in general, the woodlands works with us very well when we're planning any project, because we're trying to be good neighbors to our neighbors, but we're building big structures that span a lot of space. So we always ask for their permission, and they usually say, "You're the school district, you're good." But we try to maintain a good relationship with them.
I don't have any other questions or comments. Carolyn, do you have anything or?
Just a huge thank you. Really enjoyed it. And we thank all of our friends and members and community. Really got a lot out of this. Appreciate it.